Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. It is the deep dive, and it's the one you've all been waiting for, the deep dive on Liverpool losing to Manchester City in the Premier League at the weekend. I'm joined by Josh Williams for what's going to be an ecstatically brilliant show. We're really looking forward to it. Yeah, and you know the other mad thing is, and why I like doing this show so much, apart from the fact I get to do it with a good mate of mine, it's you can take the emotion out of it, and you know, it really was a game of two halves tactically. And I know you can look at the result and you can get sort of bogged down in it. But actually, I think Liverpool did really, really well in the second half. And I won't let us... Tactically, we did really well in the second half. The result, I understand, went against us. And, you know, our goal only came from a free kick. And it was a wonder goal and all that type of stuff. But we did enough to damage Manchester City in that second half, so there is positives to be drawn from it, for me anyway. I don't know whether you felt the same.
Yeah, we didn't play very well in the first half though, and we're going to show as to why that was the case, because there was tactical reasons behind it. But yeah, you mentioned results there. I like to think that this isn't a results show. I think this is more of a process show. I like to think that at least where we look beyond the actual scoreline, and I think any analysis that you're going to do regarding Arne Slot's future and all that sort of thing has to go beyond results. There's more to this sport, and it's such a low scoring sport. You can score with a random penalty, you can score a goal that's disallowed at the last kick of the game, and then a player's given a red card instead. It's a mad sport, so you need to look beyond the scoreline, and that's what we like to do every week, and that's what we're going to do this week. Also with a look forward to Sunderland, which should be an interesting tactical game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And apart from that, it is a bit of an action-packed show. We're going to look at City, Sunderland, as you've mentioned, and we're going to think about Arne Slot's tactics on the whole this season as well. Because we're about 2/3 of the way through the season now, aren't we? So it's not a bad time to revisit that, certainly. So, listen, we can probably put a few Manchester City players on the board, I suppose. I probably could have done this before we started, really, mate. But
yeah.
Is that
Tell you what, we'll go like this, eh?
You're going to start with how we expected it to line up?
Like that for now, yeah. I mean, if you look at City's original lineup, that's what any manager would have expected, I would think.
Yeah.
They haven't really played what they played on many occasions this season. So, little bit of an ace up Pep Guardiola's sleeve, I felt, and it gave them an edge for half an hour. And how often do you see Gary Neville speaking about getting through the first 20 minutes at Anfield, getting through the first half an hour at Anfield? Pep, I think, did this by coming with a bit of a surprise, and yeah, we'll get into it. Yeah,
so obviously I think when we saw City's lineup, we probably all thought that maybe, you know, Haaland's going to be leading the line. We'll have Semenyo over on that right-hand side, Marmoush maybe off the left-hand side, the midfield and the defence. But it didn't quite work out like that, did it? They went with a bit more of a box or a diamond in midfield. Yeah,
so the way it worked out was Semenyo tucked inside like that. Let's say that's Bernardo. Bernardo kind of formed a bit of a diamond/box vibe. Haaland definitely shifted over towards Van Dijk's side of the pitch, and Marmoush then crept up. So it was a little bit of a 4-4-2 almost, but with the four in the middle being a diamond. And we can visualise what that looks like with Viz 1 actually.
Yeah, so you can see here on Viz 1, you can see the box, the diamond is there. You can see Semenyo, you can see inside of him. And you can see there, obviously, the defenders and stuff as well. So that's kind of how they attacked us. And the other thing you can see on this is Kerkez following Semenyo into the middle.
I was going to say that, yeah. If you look at Kerkez there, what that Semenyo move did for the first half an hour was basically put Liverpool in a position where defensively, when it comes to pressing and things like that, Liverpool were unsure. Liverpool didn't quite know who to pick, whose job it was to pick up Semenyo. On different occasions, Kerkez did it, McAllister did it. I think Gakpo had to go doing it at one point. He did it,
yeah. So there was a rotation. If we can come back to the board, please, Aaron. Obviously, what you've done here is you've isolated the centre backs on the centre forwards, and what you're doing there is you bring in Kerkez here, and he was following him inside there. And what that's done is that's put Virgil van Dijk into a difficult situation and Ibu Konate into a difficult situation. And we talk all the time about it being a numbers game, don't we? Because, you know, Szoboszlai might have had to go inside at times or maybe step up. There's no one extra, which is what Slot wants at the back.
Yeah.
So as you say, we tried it where Gakpo came back in and covered for him. We tried it where McAllister came back in. But crucially, what was happening when, let's say it was Gakpo, we were getting a lot of space for Nunes on the ball.
Yeah.
And where's the ball gone? When Nunes, there it is on foot. When Nunes gets on the ball, there was a load of empty space for him to run into. And, you know, you might drag a run there, and that was happening then. So Liverpool really struggled in that first half, didn't they, with who was supposed to pick up Anton Semenyo.
Yeah.
But it changed in the second half, but let's stick with the first half for now.
Yeah, but as I said, initially, Kerkez didn't quite know whether to go with him, and nobody quite knew whether to go with them. And that resulted in City having that overload in the middle of the park with 4 players. The kind of overload that Liverpool have had on many occasions this season. The kind of overload, to be honest, that Slot has looked to establish when he's played like 2 10s in these big games. We've seen it on a few occasions now. He's played like a double 10 of Jones and I think it's City away last season, literally what he did, and it gives you that foothold in the middle of the park. City had that for half an hour, and that was why Liverpool started so poorly. That was why I think our first shot comes after 26 minutes, because it took about that for us to get to grips with what was happening. I think on top of the kind of Semenyo diamond thing, we also had this weird vibe where it felt like Haaland was coming really wide, like wider than usual. And in the process, because he's Virgil's man, dragging Virgil with him. I've got a Viz 2 to kind of showcase what that looked like. But what you can see there is, by doing that, if Haaland wins that flick on, you have Marmoush isolated with Konate. And if you also have a look at Semenyo's on his bike there, anticipating a flick on, anticipating a knock on. So by dragging Virgil out wide and essentially getting them out the picture, what City then had was Marmoush and Semenyo running into Konate, into that open space in behind. So City came with that initial plan, and it worked quite effectively because Liverpool just didn't anticipate it, and it took Liverpool about half an hour to get to grips with what was going on.
And it was a bad half an hour for Liverpool. We were all over the place as well, and it wasn't just off, you know, with City in possession. There was a problem for Liverpool in possession, and one of the things that I think whenever Guardiola has played this Liverpool side over the last 8-9 years or whatever it is, he has always said the middle of the park's mine. And he's always said to Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp or Arne Slot, you can have one of these lads, the fullbacks, and what we are going to allow you to do is we're going to allow you to play down the line. But that's the only way you can build up. And he did it again. And, you know, you think of how many times we were on this side here and a ball getting played straight down the line to Salah, and it's maybe bundled out or it's tackled or whatever. He never allows us to build up through Gravenberch and McAllister, and he was going man to man to achieve that pretty much. You know, maybe someone would drop out over here and then you were there, and it was really difficult again. And equally, you know, they might all shift over if the ball's on the other side over here, allowing that pass, because it's such a difficult one to turn inside on, and you've got to be one-on-one brilliant. And Salah, unfortunately, this season hasn't been one-on-one brilliant. And that's been making it really difficult for Liverpool to build out against City, especially on Sunday.
But what you get on the back of that is you end up spiralling on both ends of the game. You end up spiralling with the ball and without the ball, because if you can't build it, if you can't quite get out your own half and things like that, then you panic, you lose the ball, you then give City the ball back, and then they, because of this diamond, because of this box, they then kept it for an extended period. When they do lose it, they've then got loads of energy to go and regain it. Liverpool are tired because they've been defending for 5 minutes. So it's like a bit of a snowball, to be honest. If you've got it wrong from the off, both sides of the game end up suffering. And it felt like, to me, Liverpool's initial approach for the first half, whether it was intentional or not, was just, when we did regain the ball in these areas, just kind of hit long and just go to our front players and maybe hope that Salah Ekitike, Gakpo can kind of cause problems for City's defenders in like big open spaces when they haven't got support. Guardiola's defenders over the years, I think, have not been great at that sort of thing. But the problem is, as you've just pointed out, this is not really the OG Salamani Firmino. It's not even Darwin Núñez, to be honest. He was good in big open spaces. It's a bit more the ball just kind of comes back at you. You know, Gakpo, I wouldn't say his hold up game is that good.
It's nowhere near as good as Diaz's, as an example. No. You could give the ball to Diaz and he'd hold it for 10 seconds while you get players up the field. Gakpo's not like that, is he?
No. Salah, you know, I just pointed out there, he just hasn't had that ability to create separation from his man this season. Wirtz, I don't think, was particularly involved in that first half because the ball was in the air so often, because Liverpool were going direct so often. The two touches Wirtz has that of note, one of them's down here, it's a flick, absolute joke, I don't know how he does it. And the other one, he pulls wide and feeds Ekitike into this channel.
Yeah, it's
and
a brilliant ball.
Yeah, it's a great ball, yeah. And I think that kind of offered a bit of an insight into his confidence at the moment, that those were his two things that he did, and they were both high quality, and he was pressing quite keenly in it as well. But because Liverpool didn't have the foothold that City had, Wirtz kind of needs that. Wirtz needs his team to be in control. He needs his team to be dominating the ball. So Wirtz was a little bit anonymous in that first half. And yeah, we were the big thing was, despite how the edge that City had, they ultimately didn't score. And that was the big thing. Going in at half time, Slot could then give clarity to his players regarding what was going on with Semenyo. Mm-hmm. And, you know, a clear plan as to, like, this is how we deal with it, don't worry about it, play football. And we did a bit more in that second half.
Absolutely. And just to run through some of those stats from the first half, ball possession 61% to Man City, 39 to Liverpool. Expected goals for City 1.12, 0.14 for Liverpool. 10 shots for City, 3 to Liverpool. 3 shots on target for City, none for Liverpool. 1 big chance missed ultimately for Manchester City. So you can tell the story there in the stats is of dominance for Manchester City.
Yeah.
You know, at least.
Have you heard about that 10 shots thing? That's the most that Liverpool have ever faced at Anfield in a half of football.
In a half of football? Yeah. Any half of football?
Yeah, at Anfield, ever.
That's insane.
In the Premier League.
Wow, that's absolutely insane.
When I say ever, up to have been collecting this stuff since 2003. So, 23 years.
Yeah, that's basically
madness.
Ever, isn't it?
It's madness.
So, yeah, you can tell you exactly how. Does it say, is this a good game plan by Pep Guardiola, or is this a bad game plan by Arne Slot, or is it a bit of both?
I would say it's a good game plan from Pep, because, as I said, it did catch Liverpool off guard. It gave them an edge for half an hour. They had control of the centre. Liverpool struggled to control the ball because of the overload in the middle. And once Slot realised what was happening and Liverpool changed, Liverpool would then, well, not even change, Liverpool just kind of, like, this is what's going on, this is how we tackle it. Liverpool then were the better team. And when we faced City at the Etihad earlier in the season, I was disappointed then because City did that.
Yeah.
With really, you know, Doku, I think, Shaky, Foden maybe. But one of the reasons I was disappointed that day was because City were doing that every week. That was, you know, Slot shouldn't have been surprised by that. You should have a plan for that sort of thing. In this game, it's not really an approach City have used very often. So the fact he was a bit surprised for me is no real slant on his preparation and like that. I think it's just one of them. I think Guardiola comes with a good plan.
Couple of questions. First question: when Liverpool first half, where Kerkez was going into the middle, we had a little go with McAllister looking after Semenyo, and we had a little run with Gakpo looking after Semenyo. For you, is that the manager shouting from the sidelines, or is that players on the pitch trying to work stuff out? And I know it's a difficult one to answer. I'm just sort of getting a feeling more than anything else.
I am inclined to think that's players figuring it out on the fly. When I was writing my book, one thing I was keen to read up on was like the impact on the impact of a manager and things like that. And one of the managers who has spoke really insistently about this is Ernest Valverde, used to be in charge of Barcelona. He spoke to the Times, the Financial Times, I think it was, and he really did downplay his own impact on, especially once a match starts. He said something along the lines of, the game is for the players for 45 minutes at a time. The player takes his own decisions. I can shout as much as I want from the sideline, but they ultimately can't hear me. I get 15 minutes in the middle of the match to relay some instructions, but other than that, the game belongs to the players. And I think in a situation like this, where they've come with a tactical thing, it's causing problems for you. And as a player on the pitch, you can't look at it from the top. You can't look at a bird's eye view. You just see players free, and you have to, they have to be tended to, but you don't actually know tactically what's happening. That's when at half time, Slot can then get the chalkboard out and go, right, this is what's happening. Don't worry about it. You deal with him. And then second half, the players come out then clear-minded and confident in what they're doing because they know there's a plan. So yeah, I think sometimes when this kind of thing happens, I generally think there's way too much weight is placed on the manager's head to immediately solve it. Because I think it's really hard to get messages on. I think
if there was an injury or there's something like that, you may be able to get a couple of minutes to quickly speak to 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, some managers conflict with it a little bit. Some managers seem just very good in the middle of a game at tweaking things without getting 5 minutes with the players. For example, Emery comes to mind as the best at that to me. But I think generally speaking, it's hard when things are going wrong. I think you need half time, and Liverpool luckily had that without going a goal down.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm glad I asked the question because that was an interesting answer. Thank you. So we'll move it forwards then. We'll talk second half. Now, second half, it went completely differently. As you mentioned, Slot had 15 minutes. He's probably highlighted what the biggest issue is that Liverpool need to solve, the question that Manchester City are asking. And in the second half, went to much more of a man-to-man system. Now, we've got a viz for this one, which I've prepared for you. And this is the ball is at Donnarumma's feet. And you can see here, we've gone very much man-to-man. So Mo Salah is casting a pressing shadow pretty much over Mark Gahey at the top of the pitch. Wirtz is dragged with Rodri. Ekitike's looking after the other centre-half there. McAllister's close to his man. Gravenberch is close to O'Reilly, I think it is. Gakpo is just off screen. He's looking after the right back. And you can see Kerkez in the middle with Cherky, because this is after Cherky's come on, by the way. And you can see there, Kerkez has followed him a significant way into their half, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's Kerkez top left, is it?
Kerkez is the one by the referee in the centre. I think that's Cherky, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, it's a really interesting approach. And I think second half, Liverpool ultimately didn't really change that much in terms of their own shape and things like that. But as you say, they had clarity. They were a bit more... I think sometimes when you've got really good players and the manager's capable of adding rotations and different layers to how you're approaching things and stuff like that, sometimes it does just make sense to go man for man like that. I think Liverpool did that at Arsenal away at the Emirates. There was lots of just pick up a man and follow him, and don't let the rotations kill you, because if you're constantly man marked, then it's on you to just stop the gaps from emerging, if you get what I mean. So yeah, Liverpool much better second half. Just got the numbers up here. 12 shots I think we had. City had, hang on, I'm just getting up.
I've got them told. City had 7.
Yeah, but if you think of the 7, I would assume a good few of them happened in the last 10. Whereas Liverpool
one
got
was a penalty.
Yeah. Well,
one was a shot from inside his own half.
Yeah, Liverpool had more possession as well. Obviously compared to the first half, when Liverpool had 39%, in the second half Liverpool had 54%. And on top of that, Liverpool, unlike City in the first half, scored on the back of their dominance, if you want. Okay, it was a free kick, an absolute worldy free kick as well. But at that point, I was really confident that Liverpool were just going to go on and win the game. Yeah. And I think it's...
we had that Salah to Ekitike big chance, didn't we?
Yeah, Ekitike should score that, yeah. So to get to a point where you not only concede, but you also end up losing the game, and you end up getting a man sent off. It's one of them where you're just like, how have you managed that? How have you done that? Like,
well, here's a question for you, and I think this is important because, listen, at times, as I mentioned, Liverpool sort of went man to man, right? And McAllister and let's have Kerkers there, right? And then we'll have it a bit more like that. You know what I mean? And that is how Liverpool did it. Now, I do think, you know, on a still image, the one that I've just shown you sort of man to man across the board. It was a little bit more, the left-hand side was very much man-to-man and the right-hand side was playing it a little bit by ear, depending on the situation. From what I watched it back this morning, the second half, and that's what I felt I'd seen. Now, one thing I will say is Liverpool scored a goal. For about another 5, 6, 7 minutes, Liverpool were actually still quite good. We didn't immediately drop into our shell, but it was probably just before they score that I felt we'd sat back a little bit too much. And again, thinking about what you said about the manager from the sidelines, you know, was it the players on the field who were trying to hold the result? Was it the manager? Don't think we can answer that question without just repeating what you've said before. One thing I will say is Ekitike looks done after 70 minutes of every single game right now. I think Liverpool looked a little bit tired. And what is the most tiring way of defending? Man-to-man across the pitch. Yeah, it's a good point. I'm not sure what the issue is there with Ekitike, and I'm not sure how much of that is on the current coaching staff and what they've maybe done over the course of the time at the club. But it is definitely a little bit weird. It's worth noting Curtis Jones was ready to come on for about 3 or 4 minutes, but the ball just didn't go out of play. So I think that was an unfortunate thing. But sorry, just to interject there, the managers at that day is a couple of weeks ago. Remember when we had Endo lined up to come on, and we played with 10 men and then concede? Was that Bournemouth?
Yeah.
The manager screaming at them to put the ball out of play. The players on the pitch didn't do that, even though we had the opportunity. Goes to your point of how much can the manager do from the sidelines. Again, you know, Curtis Jones is ready to come on.
Yeah, well, it goes. There's a piece in the Athletic at the moment by Michael Cox, and it's really good, and it's along those lines. One of his points in the piece is that Liverpool just want to play. They don't really want to think. And
they're not asked. I'm assuming, therefore, that he's saying we're not asked about time wasting. We're not asked about, you know, long ball, you know, long throw-ins and all that. We just want to play good football. Is that what he's saying? Because I imagine, because I get that.
Yeah, but he points out in the piece that there's been so many instances this season of Liverpool essentially doing things that are just stupid, and like, for example, Kanate against Leeds, he points that one out. Alisson in this one, where he comes out, they're playing with 10 men for a while. Just lots of different things like that throughout the entire season that, you know, Liverpool have just, you can't really explain that, and I don't know why they're doing it. You know, they're coming into the season as champions, so they should be relatively streetwise, but we've lacked a bit of that this season. The whole dropping off thing, it's an interesting one now. Generally, the analytics take is, how do you set your team up from the off? Because the way you set your team up at 0-0 from the very start of the game, in theory, is the best way to approach the game, because that's what you've picked from the very beginning. So if you get to a point where you then defend or play differently, why are you doing that? And a general analytics approach is don't sit on leads. If you've got a lead, don't sit on it because you're asking for it, basically. But at the same time, Liverpool did that quite regularly last season and looked like masters of doing it. They did it really, really assured, really composed. Saw games out. We did it away at the Etihad, 2-0, dead easy. This season, we're struggling to do that to the same degree. A lot of these random errors, random mistakes are reasons why. To be honest, there's been a lot. Obviously, the Diogo Jota thing, we haven't spoke about too much on this podcast, and
for a while anyway.
Yeah, and to be honest, I haven't looked into it that much as like a reason why Liverpool might struggle here and there or whatever, but I think one thing you can tie that in with is just the mental state of the players and how assured they are, how composed they are, how prone they are to setting their own house on fire a little bit. And I think we've seen an unusual level of that this season, an unusual amount of just stupid decision making where the player just shoots himself in the foot for no reason, or whatever. So, some of that I do think can be attributed to the fact that one of the mates passed in the summer and they're having to just get on with the jobs. It's not an excuse. I've been eager not to use that as a thing, but I think when it comes to the mental state of the players, and you wonder, why have they just suddenly started making random errors? Why are they not using the brains when it comes to playing in certain pressure moments? That could be in there.
Yeah, maybe it's a factor. Of course. Yeah, I think another factor for me is that Guardiola makes a couple of subs on 60, and Liverpool don't make their first until 85. I think when you are chasing players round in a man-to-man system, you're not just stressed physically, you're stressed mentally. When you're physically tired, you're mentally tired as well.
Well, I want to use an example for that. If we go to my NDI, so that's Liverpool's bench on the day. And one thing I'm frustrated by just social media lately is it's so unbelievably easy in the media to, if a manager loses a game, you just point out what he didn't do and make out that would have won the game, or that would have made a difference, or whatever. It's just such an easy thing to do. Liam Rosenior pointed out recently in relation to, might have been Paul Merson, Rosenior quite rightly says, I was a pundit once, it's very easy. Paul Merson was calling for a high press against Arsenal. If I do a high press and we get battered, he says the opposite again. It's dead easy. But if we look at Liverpool's bench there, Slot's being criticised at the moment for not using Calvin Ramsey. People are suggesting Rio and Gamoa should be getting more minutes. I would give Rio more minutes, to be fair, but we've got to remember he's 17. And when we gave Besetic a good amount of minutes, he almost broke his back in the process, really, didn't he? Train Leone, again, kid. Freddie Woodman, no. Andy Robertson, okay, fair enough, you want to use him more, but I would argue Kerkez is playing well lately, and he's one of the few that is playing well lately. Endo is a no for me. Chiesa, I'm generally a fan of Chiesa, but there's
a limitation, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a limitation, and there's just got to be reasons why he hasn't kicked on at Liverpool, and I don't think it can be down to his attitude or anything like that. I like him as a player, but that's a difficult one. The one player on the entire bench that I would have used earlier is Curtis Jones, and to be honest, I'd be starting Curtis Jones. I'm not sure why he's not starting, but I just think generally the criticism of like Slot not using his squad players, I am mostly in the camp of they're not good enough. That's why. I don't know. I don't think it's harsh. I don't think it's.
No, I get that, and I understand that, right? But Curtis Jones is brought on after they score.
Yeah,
Curtis Jones could have been brought on before they scored.
Well, that was the plan. And that's what I said before. He was on the touchline waiting to come on for about 3 or 4 minutes.
But if we get that in, you can have a chat with your players. You can speak to 2 or 3 of those players while that substitution is on. Endo has been used in the last few weeks with the greatest of respect and done pretty well. Again, I think there's a limitation to where what you can do with him. Robertson could have been a substitution which used. I agree with you though. Kerkez is absolutely playing well, and there's no problems there. There is a limitation to what he's got available to him in this squad, and we've seen this with Pep actually at times in those big games, certainly against us over the years. And more than just the big games, he has a tendency to maybe go 90 minutes with the same team. And you're sort of looking at it going, why? Why are you doing that?
Well, in this game, despite being level and then down, and their equaliser comes after 84 minutes, Pep makes 3 subs. And one of them's Diaz, that's a concussion sub. Yeah. One of them's Ake, that happens in added time when they've got a lead.
Cherky with Diaz, wasn't there?
And Cherky Shaky's the only one really that actually comes on to change the game. He's also got Reinders, he's also got Nico Gonzalez, he's got Phil Foden, he's got Rico Lewis. He doesn't use any of them. So that's one thing I just want to touch on. I think, would I use Rio more? Yes. Would I use Jones more? Yes. But I think generally, would I use Endo when we've got a lead to manage it? Yes, like we did last season. But I think generally, for me, the argument that Slot should be using the squad players more, I think is just a case of like, just looking for another reason to criticise him personally, because I don't look at the options on the bench and think like, there's some worldies in there, you know, they'd be making a big difference on the pitch if they were playing or anything like that. I think it's just, I would blame Richie Hughes more.
Yeah, because for that. I agree with that, because I think another way to frame that is, if he has Joe Gomez on the bench, does he get on? If he has Frimpong, or, you know, does he get Isaac? And I imagine he'd use the bench a lot more if he had those players. It's quite a simple way to sort of look at it, isn't it? So yeah, I think there you go. I think we've pretty much done the Manchester City game. I think we should probably move on to the Sunderland game now, Josh. That was a clip from the deep dive. To check out the whole show, simply download the Redmen Plus app or click the link in the description.